The setting sun cast a warm, golden glow across the quiet neighborhood as Officer James finished what he expected to be another routine patrol. The streets were calm, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until a terrified little girl suddenly ran into the road, waving her arms frantically in front of his patrol car. She couldn't have been older than 6. Tears streamed down her face. Her pink dress was dusty and wrinkled, and her messy brown hair clung to her cheeks as she struggled to catch her breath. Before James could ask a single question, she cried out, "Please, you have to come with me. My mommy won't wake up." In that instant, his routine shift became something he would never forget. But what he was about to find inside that little girl's home would leave even an experienced police officer speechless. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives, please like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Warriors. Every bit of support helps us bring you more true-to-heart stories that remind the world compassion still matters. James immediately stepped out of his patrol car and knelt beside the frightened child. "It's okay," he said calmly. "I'm here to help. What's your name?" "Emily," she whispered between sobs. "Take me to your mom, Emily." Without another word, she grabbed his hand and hurried down the sidewalk, constantly looking back to make sure he was still following. James radio dispatched that he was responding to a possible medical emergency and stayed close behind her. As they moved farther into the neighborhood, the surroundings slowly changed. Well-kept homes gave way to older houses with faded paint, broken fences, and neglected yards. The silence felt unusually heavy, making every step seem more urgent. Finally, Emily stopped in front of a small house with an overgrown lawn. The front door was slightly open, gently creaking in the evening breeze. "My mommy is inside," she whispered, her voice shaking. James carefully stepped through the doorway. The house was dimly lit, and signs of hardship were everywhere. Unopened bills covered the kitchen table, empty food containers sat in the corner, and the air felt stale. Emily led him down a narrow hallway to a small bedroom. There, lying motionless on the bed, was a young woman who looked to be in her 20s. James rushed to her side and quickly checked for a pulse. She was alive, but only barely. Her breathing was weak, her skin was pale, and it was obvious she needed emergency medical attention immediately. James grabbed his radio and requested an ambulance without hesitation while doing everything he could to keep her stable. As they waited, he stayed beside Emily, speaking softly to help calm her fear. Through tears, she explained that her mother had been sick for several days. She had tried to give her water, covered her with a blanket, and even attempted to make soup, but she was too small to reach the stove. Where her mother still wouldn't wake up, she became terrified and ran outside, searching for anyone who could help. The first person she saw was Officer James. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the quiet street as paramedics rushed into the house. After examining Emily's mother, they carefully placed her on a stretcher and hurried her to the ambulance. Emily refused to let go of Officer James' hand. Fear was written all over her face, and she kept asking the same question. "Is my mommy going to be okay?" James gently squeezed her hand. "The doctors are going to do everything they can, and you're not going through this alone." Instead of leaving after the emergency was over, James drove Emily to the hospital himself. He stayed with her in the waiting room, where every passing minute felt like an hour. Emily sat quietly with her favorite stuffed rabbit pressed tightly against her chest, watching every doctor who walked through the doors, hoping one of them would have good news. Finally, a physician stepped into the waiting area. Emily's mother, Sarah, had survived. She had collapsed from severe dehydration, exhaustion, and a serious case of pneumonia that had gone untreated for far too long. The doctor explained that if Emily hadn't found help when she did, the outcome could have been very different. Relief washed over James, but it was quickly replaced by concern. As Sarah slowly recovered over the next few days, James learned more about her life. She had been raising Emily alone ever since Emily's father walked away years earlier. With no relatives nearby and very little support, Sarah worked several part-time cleaning jobs just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Whenever money became tight, She skipped meals and ignored her own health so Emily would have everything she needed. Eventually, her body simply gave out. Watching Emily patiently wait beside her mother's hospital bed, James realized that saving Sarah's life was only the beginning. If nothing changed, they would return to the same struggles that had nearly torn their family apart. He quietly made a decision. This family wasn't going to face those hardships alone anymore. Without telling Sarah, Officer James began making a few phone calls during his time off. He reached out to local charities, nearby businesses, members of the community, and several fellow officers. One by one, people offered to help. Some donated groceries, others brought clothing, while a local handyman volunteered to repair the house free of charge. What started as a few acts of kindness quickly grew into something much bigger. A few days later, Sarah was finally well enough to leave the hospital. As she arrived home with Emily, she stopped in disbelief. The yard had been cleaned. The house was spotless. The refrigerator and kitchen cabinets were filled with fresh food. The broken steps had been repaired, and a stack of gift cards and envelopes from caring neighbors rested neatly on the table. Sarah covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. For the first time in a long while, she realized she didn't have to carry every burden by herself. Emily's face lit up with the biggest smile James had ever seen. She wrapped her arms around her mother before running over to hug the officer. "Thank you for saving my mommy," she whispered. James smiled, knowing that her words would stay with him for the rest of his life. The kindness didn't end there. The community continued checking on Sarah and Emily, making sure they never felt alone again. Before long, Sarah found a steady full-time position with regular hours, giving her more time to spend with her daughter and finally allowing them to build the peaceful life they had always dreamed of. One evening, as James drove through the neighborhood, he saw Emily laughing in the front yard while Sarah chatted with neighbors nearby. The once quiet house was now filled with life, hope, and smiles. In that moment, James realized the greatest difference hadn't been made by his badge alone. It had started with the courage of one little girl who refused to give up and the compassion of people willing to answer her call for help. Sometimes, a single act of kindness doesn't just save one life. It creates a future filled with hope for an entire family. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Warriors. Together, we can continue spreading stories that remind the world that kindness still has the power to change lives.